We are starting to see that even investors are forced to consider, don't just look at things at a 2 to 3 year, because a cycle can actually come and go very quickly. You have to look at teams that can survive 2-3 cycles, and that's the right kind of team to build. When we looked at the whole space, we spent almost a year not only looking at India, looking at what this means, what does EV mean for different people in different parts of the world, because everybody looks up to a Tesla or a BMW and says, that's what EVs are. But actually, no, what mobility means for different people across the world is very different. In India, I'm sure Hero as a company has an experience that when they design a bike, they have to design for 4 people, not for 2. Right? Whereas in the US, if you say 2 people ride a bike, only 2 people will ride the bike. So things like that are very different, right? What we see is there's 2-3 areas where we are seeing which are sort of the low-hanging fruit, if you may say. That doesn't mean that other areas are not going to find investor interest. It just means that there are different types of capital coming into different parts of the ecosystem. And we looked at everything from 2-wheeler, 3-wheeler, 4-wheeler, trucks. We looked at Rivian in a big way. We'd spend a lot of time even looking at flying cars. One of our sister concerns has an investment in an electric flying car, which is actually now started to do vertical takeoff, right? It took 2 years to get to the technology. So it's getting disrupted because, for the first time, the vehicle is forced to be connected. Earlier, the vehicle was not necessary to be connected. Here, because of the presence of the battery and the fuel going with it everywhere, it has to be at birth, congenitally it has to be connected, right? So therefore you have no other option. The second is that the convergence of energy with the OEM is a very important, I think, flip in the mindset. Earlier, the OEM just said, I only have to worry about how my vehicle performs once you've put fuel. And then you can decide which fuel you want to put. You can go to a BP or a HP or a Shell, and the OEM really said, as long as I can work for different fuel grades, I'm good. I don't have to worry about what is the quality of the fuel. Today, the experience of an EV is very strongly tied to how the battery is going to perform. So therefore, the OEMs are having to go that extra mile to make sure that the energy piece is well integrated. And thirdly, I think the data that comes out, because it's both a combination of rapid scale up of deployment across the world and the fact that a full learning cycle is not yet complete, which is very important for financing. Everybody is after the data, right? So we see initial low hanging fruit in where you can do mass deployment, you can collect a lot of data, you can actually help that scale the product development, and that's where the sharing piece, all of those are no-brainers. The one piece that we believe that still is not living up to its true potential is how freight and not just last mile freight, but even mid mile freight will transform. Because when you looked at some of the numbers on the freight side, it's mind-boggling how much actually EV can disrupt. Today we don't have the product yet, but it's a huge disruptor that can change things for India. So these are some of the low-hanging fruits, but that doesn't mean that the rest of the ecosystem will not get money or does not need money. The one thought that I would leave is to say that a lot of people talk of patient capital, and I think Mr. Gill is right to point out that there's always this tussle between the investor and the entrepreneur, right? To say what is strategic, what is where do we have to give up a little to gain long term, and how do you get profitability? But off late, we are starting to see that even investors are forced to consider, don't just look at things at a 2 to 3 year, because a cycle can actually come and go very quickly. You have to look at teams that can survive 2-3 cycles, and that's the right kind of team to build.